What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 183 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. And one better, get two friends to listen to this episode and then make time to chat with them about it. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled Strong in Recovery, Resilience. Welcome back to episode 183 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast entitled Strong in Recovery, Resilience. Well, let's start by saying, what makes you strong in your recovery? When I ask guys about it, they'll typically talk about things like going to meetings, their support system, a program they have completed or are currently going through, the latest book they're reading or podcast they listen to, a good job, finding their purpose, or maybe their faith, restoring old relationships or starting a new one. Some talk about how long they've been clean and sober, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years. And many guys will remind me my strength is that I'm just staying one day at a time and not getting ahead of myself. Well, from this, I'd like to look at what do the dictionaries say, like Oxford language and stuff like that? What does it mean to be strong? Well, being strong, in the Oxford language dictionary, it says three things. It says having the power to move heavy weights, being able to perform physically demanding tasks, and being able to withstand great force or pressure. So that got me to thinking about each one of these. What do we do in recovery to be able to do these things? So let's go back to the first one, having the power to move heavy weights. So how do we move heavy weights in recovery? How do we get that strength? What burdens have been your heavy weights? And how are you getting strong enough to carry that burden, carry those heavy weights? Or move them out of the way, or realize which time is right to look at those weights and lay them down and walk away from them. The second one, performing physically demanding tasks. Well, with that one, I challenge you to look at what are the demands on your life. You know, these demanding tasks. What are the demands on your life, both from the expectations of others and from your own expectations? And how are you getting strong enough to deal with those demands in your life? The third one, being able to withstand great force or pressure, gets me thinking, like, what are the forces working against you? What are the forces undermining your recovery? What pressures are creating stress for you every day? What are you doing to be aware of those stressors? And what are you doing to alleviate them? How are you handling those stressors so they don't undermine your recovery? Well, as I was processing this myself this week, the answer that came to me was the clue or the key is learning to be resilient. And I'd like to give you a comparison to think about resiliency. So let's compare one guy playing golf and another guy playing ice hockey. They both realize that they just hit a bad shot. And what do they do to be resilient to go play the next shot? Well, for me, and I've tried both sports and I prefer ice hockey, playing golf, if I hit a bad shot, I'd then have to put the club back in the bag, walk 5 minutes or 3 minutes or however long to be able to play my next shot, wait for the other guys I was playing with to hit their shots and walk, feeling embarrassed for the shot that I made, especially if they made a good one with their ball. And I found I really wasn't resilient enough to be able to handle that pressure, to be able to handle that stress. The burden of being able to process that shot before I got to my next one was too much for me. And often I'd get up there and just shank the next shot. Or even if I made a best shot, what I was thinking of, say I made a bad shot and put it in the sand trap, I'd be thinking about how do I chip up close enough to be able to get a one putt, because I knew I didn't have the skill to chip it into the hole. But ice hockey and street hockey was very different. Missing the net on a shot was pretty common. And the key was the puck was resilient. The puck was going to bounce off the boards. The puck was going to be going somewhere else. And I just didn't have time to stop and think about it. I didn't slowly go along on my skates and feel sorry for myself. I knew I had to be resilient, because the puck was still moving, the game was still going on, and I had to leave any thoughts of that missed shot behind. I didn't have to think like a golfer about, was it my stance, was it my backswing, was it my follow through, what did I do wrong? I just got on with the game. So I guess I was resilient enough to leave the bad shot as just that. It was part of life, and move on, because it's time to keep skating and get on with the game. So how do we become ice hockey players in recovery? How do we become resilient? And again, if I go back to the dictionaries, the definition of resilience is to be able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult situations. It's when you tend to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change in your life. You see, bad shots are always going to happen now and again. It's our job in recovery to be as resilient as an ice hockey player after they miss the net. So what are some things we can sort of build into our life as reminders to check our own resiliency, or to inventory our own resiliency on a regular basis? So I made a bunch of words that start with the letter R. Here's the list. And they're not in any particular order. The first one is be realistic. And I think being realistic says you won't feel good all the time. Stuff happens. There will be pain. There will be sorrows. There will be struggles. And that's all part of life. And realistically, I need to accept that that's part of life and not let it unravel my game, unravel my recovery. The second R is recover quickly. In this one, I'm looking at how could I develop the skills or the attitude or the mindset to cope and bounce back after changes, challenges, setbacks, disappointments, and failures. What do I do in my recovery to recover quickly when any of those things happen? The third R starts to answer that question, and that is regroup. And I think it's important in this aspect of resiliency. Regrouping as a mindset tells me step back briefly, not step back and just sit down in the mud, so to speak. Step back briefly and think through, process, chat with other people, and get up and move forward. It's key to realize that that part of regrouping also involves rebound. You know, that ability to bounce back. ability to say, you know what, I can absorb this shock, these setbacks. I can withstand them without permanent damage, without any crippling injury emotionally. And that involves knowing that if I don't bounce back, stress can happen. So my next R is reduce stress. And to me, the best way to reduce stress is to learn how and work on learning how to handle stress more positively. Because people that are resilient emotionally somehow maintain control of their life when going through difficult times, and you don't even know they're going through the difficult times. They look the same on good days or bad days because they're handling their stress. They're reducing their stress. And I think there's 2 R's that can help us with that area of stress in resiliency. The first one is to reach out. We all need a support system. We need to stay connected. We need to develop our friendships into true fellowship so that we have people to reach out to who understand us, to talk to help us process when we're in that regrouping stage and be able to remind us it's time to move forward and get back in the game. And I think a key part that you can do with your support system as you reach out is rehearse. And for me, rehearsing means to talk through scenarios with your coach, your mentor, your sponsor, your counselor, whoever, and actually script out, write down typical responses that will keep you from getting knocked for a loop when situations arise. You know, when these changes and challenges and setbacks and disappointments and failures happen, when the bad shots happen, I've already gone through that scenario in my mind, and I've scripted out notes that I can look back on to say, this is how I handle it. In closing, I'd like to use the lyrics from a song by Teddy Swims and Illenium. And the song's entitled All That Really Matters. Here's some of the lyrics. Learning how to live when there's no one around. It's like learning how to feel when the drugs run out. You can see my scars 'cause I'm wearing them proud. Even with my broken parts, I feel better now. If I could crawl in the mind and give it any advice to my younger self, find something you can hold on to. Find someone who'll be there for you, 'cause that's all that really matters in the end. Find somewhere you can come home to. Find someone that'll die for you, 'cause that's all that really matters in the end. It's love, love, love. Great lyrics. And I think there's some great keys to resiliency in this song. Things like learning to live and choose life when we're all alone and there's no one around. To be remembering not to cover up our scars, because they're reminders that you are a survivor. To focus on ways that you're better now and not focus on the bad stuff from your past. To find something you can hold on to. To find someone who will be there for you and find somewhere you can come home to. All great ways to stay resilient as our way of staying strong in recovery. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you were saying, that's me, I need to figure out how to be resilient, then it's time now to reach out and join a group, or message me on the link in this podcast, or by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com, or go to my website, www.fromatod.org, and click on the contact page. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide in that platform. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as my new always, stay safe and stay resilient.